Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Bright Founders Talk at Temi. Temi is an international software development company that designs, builds, and delivers software for sustainable businesses and promising startups. My name's Matthew, and I'm joined this evening by Jan Rippingale, who is the CEO and founder of Banyon. How are you this evening, Jan?
I am doing great. I am very happy to be here, Matthew.
And thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule to be with us today. Jan, before we get started, can you tell our listeners and our viewers a little bit about Banyon, what it is and what it stands for?
So Banyon is really an innovative company that is about making game-changing systemic shifts at scale. And so the first part of that game-changing shift that we're making is around solar and renewable energy. And we have a 5-year goal of getting the United States back on track with the Paris Climate Accord. So right now, even with the Inflation Reduction Act, we're going to be about 10% shy in 2027, which is when our 5-year goal hits its 5th year. And so we're looking to support 30% of the installed solar base in the United States on the Solar Success platform, which is our product. And we're looking to reduce our clients' soft costs, the cost of doing business, by 30%, which would free up 10% of that money to make the difference to go into the additional infrastructure gap that we need to meet that goal.
So there's a lot to unpack there. There's big responsibility in that.
Absolutely. It's a big responsibility, and big, hairy, audacious goals are really fun. And there's a combination of areas that fundamentally I think are inefficient right now in solar and renewable energy, but in general in our economy. So we're looking to reduce a lot of what I consider suboptimal consumption, particularly around finance fees for just the cost of doing business and moving capital around effectively, and legal fees relative to insurance and risk management in renewables. That I think is actually a better way of handling risk altogether, supporting greater resilience. And then our next biggest initiative is around permitting, where we've been working with the Department of Energy for 5 years now on permitting across the 18,000 AHJs, authorities having jurisdiction in the United States, in case you ever thought South Africa was bureaucratic. We have 18,000 AHJs, and the average permit time in the United States is 27 days to get a solar permit. And we've developed and helped with the solar app software under a DOE, Department of Energy initiative, to get it down to 2 days. And then we just added the API connection from Solar Success to Solar App, which has got it down to 72 minutes.
Wow.
So we are almost competing with Europe, which can issue a solar permit in 60 minutes. So we are honing in on that goal to get the United States back on track. And by addressing the permitting and making it a much more pleasant customer experience for the homeowner, we're expecting the cancellation rates to go down, the cost of capital to be reduced because you don't have to wait so long for the financing. We get financing charges while you're waiting this entire time period. And you're also waiting to buy the equipment and everything else. So the costs of the permitting by themselves are huge. And then, of course, we have project management and accounting all set up and automated for operational efficiency gains. So we're adding all of those pieces up to reduce the soft costs by 30% so that we can get the United States back on track with the Paris Climate Accord.
Fantastic. That's brilliant. Well, look, we are holding thumbs for you, and it sounds like you've done a lot already. I mean, to bring those times down so drastically, that is just an incredible achievement. It must have been quite something getting to that point, putting all the pieces together, building up these things. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Absolutely. It has absolutely been a journey. I think there's a lot of room that I think most startup founders maybe don't appreciate sufficiently in working with public-private partnerships. And we've worked with the Department of Energy's Orange Button data standards to standardize the terminology for our APIs, which is super important for all software, as you know, Matthew, is that you actually are speaking the same language with the same terms. And one of the key things about that data standards has to do with units. So when we're saying that we had 13.5, we know if it's kilowatt hours, megawatt hours, gigawatt hours, it makes a huge difference in everything that we're transferring. And that one shift in that all of our defined elements going through our APIs always has explicit units defined in it is a game changer for the industry, so that we can record things at the Internet of Things level, sensor by sensor, all the way up to utility scale coordination for the grid. And it all works because you've got that unit of measure in there. It's amazing. We stole that from, copied, observed, goodness, something like that. Yeah, from the SEC's use of XBRL and what they did to get 30,000 publicly traded companies to be able to send in their books and talk apples to apples, like every quarter, every time, and have it out within 24 hours. That what XBRL did that made the difference was they defined the units with every single element that went in. And that's how they could normalize across these 30,000 companies. So we borrowed that and applied it to energy, and we're starting to get the similar kind of adoption. So the first step was working with this with Orange Button, and we chose to do it with the DOE instead of doing it as Blue Banyon proprietary software kind of ideas, because we needed the adoption. Common language only works when everyone is using it. Yeah. And so learning how to standardize and recognize that the standards can't be proprietary to Blue Banyon, because no one's interested in building something proprietary to Blue Banyon, but they are interested in building something that works for everybody engaged with the Department of Energy. And so it's a contribution on our side. It's totally voluntary, and it gives us this common language to build what we need, but to build it for the industry as a whole. That's the starting point. Then we had to do common data sets, and then we had to do common tools. So it has absolutely been a journey.
There's a
we've
lot
got
of
the common tools part. Yeah, so we had common tools, common data sets, and common terms, data sets, and tools. Those were the things that we needed to get aligned to be able to pull this off. But it has a 2 order of magnitude improvement. 27 days to 72 minutes is exponential twice.
Oh, yes. It is a crazy shift, absolutely insane. With all of this, all these moving parts, 18,000 different departments, and the language that you're talking about and all of that, you would have had to have a very good overview of your ideas, your project, and a mannerism to carry something like that through. How do you manage to balance all of this and to stay focused and stay on track?
So for the most part, I use mental models and frameworks, and then I have them written right in front of me that I can see them every day. So it's pretty low tech what I do to keep myself on track with what it is that I need to do. And it's super effective. So the framework of the common terms, common data sets, and common tools enabled me to hook up with the right groups of people that I needed to have and give them enough focus and clarity that they could actually deliver what they needed to do. My main contribution to this, and we have contributed code, we've had contributed insight, but my main contribution has just been clarity. Letting people know, defining a unit of work that was small enough that they could go and come back with that unit of work to the group as a whole and coordinate it. Again, it sounds super simple, and it is, but common sense is not exactly common practice.
Absolutely.
So that has been my main contribution in leading this forward. The other piece of this is that we really needed to notice what was already available. One of the really important pieces we needed to do was be able to take a homeowner's address and put it into the correct AHJ. Believe it or not, no one had figured out how to do that in the United States of America in any sensible manner. Yeah. So NREL, which is the National Renewable Energies Laboratories, under the DOE. One of the national labs in the US approached us and asked how we could possibly know which AHJ each permit needed to go to, because they didn't know how to solve the problem. And so we got an intern who went out there and discovered that all of the AHJs are already defined in polygon form from the Census Bureau. And all we needed to do was load it up in a database and do some geocoding searching, which the polygons were set up to handle, and then give it an orange button compliant API, and voila, we're there. So that you needed to have the three ingredients, and they needed to be brought together, but they were all pre-existing. So we had an intern do the first version of it over the summer, and it had a dramatic increase. It used to be that you'd literally have to have experts who knew every state and had memorized how all the pieces fit it together in that state. It's a little bit like a mentat from Dune. Like you had to think, have some mental computer person who had this tribal knowledge about how the state of Georgia worked or the state of Texas worked. And they would look up on the maps and they would do their best to figure it out.
Little finding your own.
And so it was very expensive. Exactly. That was what was happening until like 2022, right? So having to go in and geocode and find it in the polygon was absolutely game-changing. And when we went to validate it, we found out that we were like 98.5% correct every single time the system allocated the thing. And of the 1.5 that was not correct, they had like data problems. The city didn't match the zip code, or the address wasn't there, or it had changed over the time period from our test data to where it was, which AHJ it would be in now. So we had some that were half of these kind of edge cases. And then the other half were, and I think it was like 72 or something, where both the AHJ and the installer issued the permit from the wrong AHJ.
Wow.
And that the software system was correct, but neither the AHJ nor the installer could figure it out. And so they had issued the permit incorrectly, and both of them had. So it was that hard to solve. It was that easy to solve, but it was that hard of a problem.
Yeah.
And anyway, it's very fun to just have it fixed now. Now we've got 300,000 hits a month. It is used by everyone across the industry, and it continues to grow at 5% a month as the word goes out to the smaller installers. So
That's crazy.
It's gotten absolute adoption from the simple pieces. But you had to think about an industry-wide solution and be willing to give that industry-wide solution to everybody else. And then that develops goodwill across NREL and the Department of Energy and the different players. And that goodwill leads to a bit of a moat because we know how to implement it best. And then more and more people just come to us because we have the expertise from the beginning. So it's a long-term play. You have to really have a lot of passion in order to get into your industry that way. And it wasn't that hard to solve. It was solved by an intern over a summer.
So you started out doing something, and it sounds like you almost, I don't want to say stumbled upon an amazing solution that's benefiting a lot of people, but you worked, like you said, what many might have seen as a very complex issue and people were struggling with over the years, and you managed to simplify that, which I can say is definitely one of your big strengths, and put it all into practice and get it in a straight line. Now, you mentioned passion, and this is what I wanted to speak to you about a little bit, is where is your passion? Is it the business, the environment? Is it a mixture? Where did it come from?
I was going to be astronaut and then president when I was a kid.
Nice. In that order?
And so in that order, because I figured once you were an astronaut, you'd be famous, so it'd be easy to become president. That was my 9-year-old self logic. And so I always loved science and puzzles and math. And I always wanted them to actually affect people's lives and make a difference. So game-changing systemic shifts, building a company that is focused on finding them and then implementing these shifts, actually doing them, has always been in line with my passion. I love to solve problems, which is why all of the puzzles with the science and the math and the astronaut pieces were always there. And then a contribution that actually matters. That was the public service side of being president. And you got to be a little nuts to run for president in the United States right now, maybe ever. And I'm able to accomplish a lot of good things by solving my puzzles and making contributions. So this is actually tied all the way back into my core childhood passions about the entire world in a way that's fun. So it does actually trigger all that childhood joy, flow state precursors, all of the science behind that. I found that out in arrears, not in advance. I didn't design it that way, but I did notice that one of the reasons that I'm successful at this is because it is utilizing the things that I am fundamentally good at and enjoy doing.
That's brilliant. And, one quick look at your LinkedIn, and there is a list of things that you are involved in. Are you still busy with a lot of different things? Do you like to include multiple aspects into your life? Tell us a little bit about that.
I do like variety. If you study longevity, as some of my friends have, if you're a Silicon Valley, even adjacent to Silicon Valley CEO, longevity is part of the culture around here. And one of the root insights is that you have to have variety. You have to have variety in your heart rate variability. You have to have variety in your life. And the best way to get that is that you've got to try things that are really hard, that you have to rest really deeply. You need to work hard and you need to play hard so that it like gives you all the variation that you need in your life. And I need that to stay fresh. And I used to think it was self-indulgent because, I don't know, born a woman and you're told that if you have self-care, you're being self-indulgent. And over the years, I have really seen that when I can bring my best self, because I can really be present and I am having fun and I am engaging from a fun, energetic, inspiring place, then my leadership is dramatically better. So I can spend much less time. It's higher quality time. I enjoy myself better and the results are better. There is nothing but love in doing self-care and having that variety. So I play with my friends and usually they are also game changers in some way or another. But they're all across the board. Some of them are doing, Roots for Peace, and they're turning landmined fields into winery vines, kind of agriculture, reclaiming space. And that sounds absolutely different than everything that I'm doing, other than the simplicity of you've got to remove the landmines before you can, do agriculture in this space, and you got to grow the food to feed the people.
Yeah.
Sounds super simple, but Afghanistan will never recover until they can grow food to feed their people. And they'll never be self-sustaining until that is the truth of the matter. Mm-hmm. So for me, it's very aligned because it's another one of those simple truths that when you execute it, you really have a substantial impact. And so I absolutely love it. So I can see that on the surface, the activities and the people that I participate with and that I support and engage with are all over, look like they might be all over the map, but all of them have this little delightful puzzle that they solved that makes them super fun for me to engage with.
That's brilliant. I like that. While we're on that, talking about engaging with people and the people you surround yourself with, tell me about what you look for when you're bringing people into Blue Banyon. What sort of qualities are important for you in choosing the right people?
Well, We have really found that I don't know if you've heard of champ frogs. They're like the different ways that people are motivated, and there's an acronym for it. And what we have found is that Blue Banyoneers, people who work here, are really interested in mastery. They really want to master their craft and be very, very good and skillful at it with continuous improvements, and that they're highly motivated by curiosity, that they want to understand how this can work. The word impossible just means that we haven't tried yet. And so there's like no part of this. Like they're actively looking for what they can find in the mix to figure it out. And they're happy to fail fast. Failure is just a step along the way to success. Like it's no big deal.
Absolutely.
And they're super transparent because if they want to know how to master their craft better. So if you give them constructive feedback, you just became their best friend. They don't shy away from it. They don't whatever, but they're like, oh, give me more. I want to find someone who can actually help me grow and have more insight. So they really value constructive criticism. Might be criticism, might just literally be feedback. They treasure that because it feeds into their mastery and curiosity because they really want to know what's going on. And so we're looking for people who not only lean in, but thrive in this constant feedback loops. And they want more feedback loops, and they want to automate the parts that are tedious so that they can spend time doing the parts that are interesting. And we absolutely love that kind of person. I started really appreciating people who are like that when I worked at NASA. I was at the Kennedy Space Center. I worked at a couple different NASA places, but at the Kennedy Space Center, they gave us this challenge. I was an intern at one point in time, and it was like the Apollo 13 challenge, where they stick you in a room and they give you a box of what it is that you have available, and they say, somebody's choking. Figure out what you're going to do about it. And it sounds like it's no big deal to talk about somebody choking, but if you have uncontrolled liquids that are going into electronics, because in microgravity, whatever you're throwing up doesn't go down. It's not in the regular shapes, right? And the momentum is different. Like there's all of these challenges that you tend to not think about when you've got gravity available to you. And so you've got what it is that you're going to solve the problem. And that problem ended up being relatively straightforward, because one of the problems in just the regular world is that you'd use a ballpoint pen and create an opening, but then you've got to suck it up with the right little vacuum that they have available as one of your tools. But the process of revisioning how you're going to solve these problems with completely different constraints is so much fun. And you really see how much is possible to do and how much these assumptions really filter your life, and they don't need to. So even just looking at gravity and momentum as a box, and then taking getting out of that box and then looking at the world again, I started to see boxes everywhere around me and realizing that I don't need that role, and I don't need that role, and this doesn't have to be there. And then finding people who thought that way and want to play like that, instead of being afraid naturally, but they're like engaged naturally. I mean, I am surrounded by my best friends. Like Blue Banyon has become the most fun club of people that I want to work with that I've ever had in my life. Yeah, it's a benefit of being a founder, is you can think about what was the happiest, most fun time in your life, and what were those characteristics, and you have to articulate them. And it sounds a little frou-frou to say what it is that you do like and what you don't like, but it makes all the difference in the world. When I was coming up with our values for what it is that we do like, I had this great exercise that somebody had me do. And he had me list my anti-values, everything that made me crazy. Like if I have to babysit somebody and ask them how they're progressing on something, every single day in order to make sure they're doing, that's what I call babysitting. That means that they're not engaged enough, they're not curious enough, or they're not into their mastery enough that I have to push them instead of they're being pulled by their inner drive to get there. That just made me crazy. And so seeing that was one of listing my anti-values was a huge help in me seeing what my values are. Because one of my values is literally, it's time to value or time to insight, idea to execution time. I need that to be as short as possible, because then my curiosity triggers and my mastery triggers and what I'm learning from stay engaged. If you're going to add 2 days so that you can have a meeting with somebody else to have a pre-meeting for something else, I'm out of there, right? I'm totally bored. And it's god awful. And my engagement is over, right? I need to have maker time. I need to have blocks of time that I can explore my curiosity and go through in depth. And I need engagement to happen in a timely fashion for my curiosity to stay fresh. And that's part of the dynamic I need. I need my team actively engaging up with me and feeding me with new ideas and creativity and how this is working. And that makes it super fun for all of us, because we have no idea what we're going to come up with.
I have 2 more for you. And my first one is, I like this question, if I have to go into your bedroom and I have to write a message on your wall, and you wake up every day and you see the saying or the phrase, what does it say? You have to see it every day. There's no choice. It has to be there. What am I writing on your wall?
So this sounds really bizarre because it's not English, but I actually do have that up on my wall, and it's Be Rigpa.
Be Rigpa.
And Rigpa, R-I-G-P-A. So that's a Tibetan word, and it has to do with your point of view. So if you view yourself as only a single body from a single point of view, you'll always be restricted to what it is that you know directly or what you've experienced yourself, or that you're limited in this time-space body. And if you be Rigpa, you're not. You're actually able to receive and play with all of the energy of consciousness directly. And you're not at all restricted to what has been done in your time frame. Or you can have conversations with, Dr. Feynman or Einstein or Gandhi or whatever it is that you need to work through your issue. All of that, you just presume it's available, and it feeds you. So I'm not restricted by time, space, or identity. So that's what I have, is Be Rigpa.
I like that.
And it's a much more fun way to be in the world.
That's cool. I think that's our first, you said it was Tibetan, the word?
It's Tibetan. Yeah,
that's
the concept is Tibetan, R-I-G-P-A.
R-I-G-P-A. Yeah, it's definitely our first.
Yeah, R-I-G-P-A.
Nice. I'm going to have a look at that afterwards.
We don't have a good word in English for it. We need a new word. If you can find the English equivalent, Matthew, I'm totally curious.
I'll ask around and I'll let you know. And then lastly, if there's anything I might have forgotten, or if you'd like to give our viewers and our listeners a special message, where can they find you, or how can they learn more about what you do?
I'm absolutely interested in connecting with everyone who wants to play this game and make game-changing systemic shifts. My email is jan@bluebanyan.com, BLUBANYAN, because we don't do anything normal. We took the E off of the blue. And I am really encourage everyone to look around and see the resources that are available to them, because we have all the solutions we need to solve all of our problems. Usually it's a matter of recognizing that solution in our environment. And it could be people, It could be resources available through time. I am currently learning a lot from the Dune Chronicles. Like, you just never know where your inspirations or answers are going to come from.
Absolutely.
And if you embrace that availability of those answers out there in the universe, you really do have everything you need. Everything is provided for you, and it's just a matter of recognizing it. So I encourage everyone to look with fresh eyes and see what's around.
It's power. Jan, I want to say thank you so much for sharing all these insights, and I can tell some deep, true feelings with us about yourself, your journey, and your ideas. We do really appreciate it, and obviously we are looking forward to the future to see where this goes, and we wish you all the best.
Thank you so much, Matthew. It's great to be here. This has been really fun.